Welcome to Tattoo Homewreckers, a podcast where we talk about tattoos, life, and everything in between. My name is Lou. This is our guest star,
Callista.
Not true.
And this is our promptly late but always perfect
Guinness. Hi.
You have been seat checked.
I've been seat checked. Guinness is trying to drink my beverage. Excuse
you. Need to share that seat with Guinness.
I will.
We
Hello,
are here
everyone.
today to talk about mental health, life, and everything in between.
Yeah, welcome to our podcast. Sorry I'm late. Unfortunately, I'm stealing.
Bro.
Everyone chill the fuck out.
Unfortunately,
You need to chill the fuck out.
We are here today to talk about mental health,
Yes.
but also just talk about therapy and talk about life and whatever the fuck we want to talk about because you're on this journey with us.
Absolutely, and it's our podcast, not yours. But before we get going,
but we do appreciate you being here, so we don't mean that in a mean way when we say it's not your podcast.
I mean it in a mean way.
No, she doesn't. So we have two guest stars today. We've got Guinness, who you can, if you're on YouTube, you can see her. If you can't see her, she is a beautiful Manchester Terrier. She is our 13-year-old dog. She is sporting her Pride bandana. Mm-hmm. She does sport it all year round, but this month it's extra special.
Yep.
And then, Callista, if you want to take us away.
Absolutely. Before we get going on our mental health episode, I would like to ask both of you, what does your gender feel like today?
A clownfish.
Clownfish.
Yes.
Okay.
Wait, is a clownfish Nemo's dad?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no, not that.
Dory?
No, not Dory. What is the fish that Smith tries to catch in
Lionfish.
A lionfish. Mm-hmm. I'm a lionfish. You know my dad had a lionfish?
Aren't they crazy expensive and crazy toxic?
Yeah, and they're also an invasive species.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, well they're not an invasive species when you put them in a fucking tank in Florida. He wasn't in the ocean. He was in a tank.
No, but still an invasive species. There we go. Our fucking guest decided to hop off. All right.
Yes. Guinness will be on and off.
I don't know.
Are we going with animals again this round? I can skip you if you need time to think.
Yeah.
I am going to say that I feel like a very pretty hippo.
A hippo?
Mm-hmm.
You're such a beautiful hippo.
Thank you. And you know how dangerous they are?
Yes, but also they're vegetarian.
You know, I've been saying that they're murder jelly beans.
Oh,
they're giant murder jelly beans.
They are murder jelly beans. Wait,
Yeah.
What's your favorite jelly bean flavor?
Ooh, that one's kind of hard. Anything but the fucking popcorn one. Fuck the popcorn one.
What are you talking about? That one's delicious.
Are you joking?
You know what? This is why I love us. Because anything you don't like, I tend to like. So
Take
more
it.
for me. Don't do it in a disrespectful way.
Take your buttery fucking gross ass fucking jelly bean. No,
I love it. But you also don't like savory foods that cosplay as sweet foods.
I hate that shit.
Hate.
Oh, I said that to the lady at Cracker Barrel.
Oh, yeah, she did.
Yeah, so this really nice lady at Cracker Barrel was stocking, the candies at the front of the store, and she was like, oh, yeah, I'm trying to find a place for these. Oh, have you tried, I picked up the sushi, they make these jelly candies that, look like other foods.
Bacon, you guys, they had bacon. I thought it was the funniest thing ever.
They had bologna, strawberry-flavored jelly bologna.
Bologna's only good if you, saute it. Otherwise, it's not good.
I don't think you can saute
Dress
jelly
it up.
bologna.
Not jelly bologna,
Well, so
though.
it wouldn't be good.
Anyways, so she was all like, oh, have you, that one's really good. And I was like, yeah, I do hate sweet foods that cosplay as savory ones, though. They just make me so angry. And
You
then
should
she
have
just
said,
went quiet.
are you looking for a place for those? Have you tried the trash?
Have you tried the garbage where they belong? Garbage.
Also, fun fact, I learned something. I won't state who it was from. Callie was talking on our little road trip, because we love doing road trips because we just get uninterrupted talk time.
Yes.
But Callie was talking about how someone recently pointed out that when she's done with a conversation and she doesn't want to have that conversation anymore, she just goes, okay.
The guy I'm seeing had told me that. And he was like, I hate when you do that. When I'm done with the conversation, I'll just go, okay.
Yes, and if you didn't
I had no
notice,
idea that I did that.
She does the same thing anytime she says, anyways. And so in the car, she was
anyways, Caboose, what is your gender?
Exactly. In the car, she was like, yeah. He was like, you say okay. And I was like, you fucking do.
And
It is in infuriating.
I can't wait for you guys to bond over that because I had no idea that I did that shit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's just going to be him and I yelling over the fact that we're like, isn't that the most frustrating thing?
Very.
She just shuts you down.
Yep.
Perfect. Have you had enough time?
I'm going to say Komodo dragon.
Well, that's a good one.
Ooh.
You know, their spit is like really not.
It's just full of bacteria. They
Lots.
just need to brush their teeth.
You think so?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well,
if
I
that'll
think
help.
mouthwash.
Mouthwash, you know.
I don't think people use mouthwash enough.
I think maybe both for a Komodo.
I don't think Komodo dragons do any of that.
I also don't use mouthwash because like
Why?
it burns really bad.
That means you need to do it more.
That means you need to go to the dentist more.
What?
Anyways.
Anyway,
Okay.
change of
That's where you
subject.
go. Okay. Change the subject. We're going to talk about mental health. And with that being said, I did want to ask you guys, what do you think a mentally healthy human looks like in their everyday life?
Wow, you just hit me with a doozy.
I swung up on you.
Yes, you did.
Yeah.
What if I just threw that back at you and said, "What do you think a mentally healthy human
Do you guys
being
need
looks
time
like?"
to think?
No.
I can answer.
I can answer right now, too.
Sure.
Me. What are you laughing at?
I'm sorry. Explain to us
Yes.
what that means.
Yes. Stop scratching your bug bites.
Oh, the end.
I know, but you have three. Like you've
You're
got
gonna-
two massive lumps.
I don't think they can see it.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
it's
so
so
gross.
gross.
It's gonna
It
touch you.
genuinely looks like
It's
she's
fine
got
to
like.
touch me now, but when they get all fucking gross and pussy,
Yeah, that's when they're like when they get
Yeah.
woozy.
you have your
She-
like allergic
We're
reaction.
driving, and she goes, "I have 3 elbows."
Yeah, like fucking.
Yeah, she also looks like some sort of lizard person right now because she is horribly allergic to bugs and got bit by a couple
And
bugs.
before anyone says like everyone's allergic to mosquitoes, you're
No.
not. No, I'm like especially bad. It's
Okay.
awful.
Let me just interject here. I had the same thought that you guys had, that everyone is allergic to bugs. Yes, we have a minor allergy, but the welts that come up on her, like, I'm not kidding when I say, look at the size of your elbow. She has an additional 2 of those on her forearm. I went up my tricep there, on her forearm. Every single time she gets bit by a bug, I contemplate taking her to a hospital. It is that bad.
It ends
She
up
got-
looking like poison ivy.
Yes.
Yeah, that's pretty bad.
Like, it looks beyond a normal, natural mosquito bite. She got bit on the foot, and she has one, like, large, like, kind of, what are those baby dolls? The Gerber baby, like,
Ooh,
a very
not the
chunky
Gerber.
foot. Yes, you have one baby foot, like a little club
It
foot.
hurts to walk on.
Yes.
Yeah, it's
So,
very
like, it
painful.
is a genuine allergy to any sort of bug bite.
I once got bit in Cancun and I couldn't close my fist because of how like swollen my hand, and that's pretty much every bug. So yeah,
Yeah,
so
it's
it
real bad.
hurts to like flex my toes. But what is mentally healthy? Like, what do you think
Yeah,
a mentally healthy?
you're the
human
most
looks like?
mentally healthy person here.
Lou.
What?
I'm here to police
That
her.
was very judgy.
a very pointed look in the camera she just gave. Yeah, what do you think a mentally healthy human looks like?
I don't know. Like I guess it's hard to because that whole like mental health journey is so specific.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to say like blanket like this is what a mentally healthy person looks like.
Yeah.
Because like I don't know, for me like there are I guess it's always going to be a journey, you know, to get from wherever you are to constantly be getting better at it, you know, and that's kind of like I guess where I am is like being so far behind. Far behind is not the right word, but like having a lot of things that I have to work on, and then like I guess the major point in like being like emotionally intelligent and mentally healthy is like being able to see all those different things that you need to work on, you know, because I think the opposite of that is like somebody who isn't like emotionally intelligent or like,
Yeah.
like, and they don't think that they have anything that they need to work on. So
yes, like more closed off
Yeah.
to like any kind of like idea of like, oh, you could improve on this, or oh, like this is something that like isn't exactly the healthiest approach, or you know, et cetera, et cetera.
yeah, like saying like, oh, I'm good enough, so I don't need to work on anything. And it's like, well, I feel like most people have things that they should probably be working on.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I would venture to say everyone always has
Yes.
things they could work on.
Yes.
I think for me, because I think that was like an amazing like definition of like mentally healthy. And I think for me, it's the like, not to quote Ted Lasso, but to quote Ted Lasso for a second, it's curiosity over judgment.
Yeah.
And I think that that's the case. Like we've talked about that a lot in our relationship where it's like, it's about curiosity. It's like if someone were to tell me like, hey, you're a narcissist, I would then question to be like, what is that? Like, am I a narcissist? Like, what is that perception?
Mm-hmm.
Instead of just going on like the defense and like to get like, I guess a little less of an extreme example of somebody was like, hey, I think you're kind of fake. I would be like, hey, like, please tell me why you think that.
Mm-hmm.
Are you someone that I feel safe to be myself around? Or are you someone that like, as you know, a self-diagnosed autistic individual, do I feel the need to mask around so you don't get to see those sides of me?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it is about like accepting like other people with curiosity and not judgment. And
Absolutely.
and it's also accepting yourself with curiosity and constantly forgiving yourself for like what you didn't know. Like that to me is that part of like mental health where it's like, I'm not going to be mad at myself anymore for the stuff that I didn't know that I did that was like hurtful or like I say in air quotes, like wrong. Because I also, for me personally, I think that mental health falls in this range of like, it's like physical health. It's always like,
Yeah.
I'm going to forever have to like analyze what I'm doing. I'm going to forever have to eat fruits and veggies. I'm going to forever have to work out to maintain physical health.
Absolutely.
And it's the same thing with mental health that like I need to always be willing to like look at it. And I do believe there's like ebbs and flows where like when you have more energy, you're like absolutely right now. But like when we're really invested in the business, I'm like, dude, I don't have time to like analyze like what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And like my impact on other people.
For sure.
But when it gets quiet again and I'm not so busy, then I can be like, you know what? I did that. I don't love that I did that. I'm so sorry. And it's a lot of like circling back. And I think that to me is the like epitome of mental health is being able to circle back to be like, hey, when you said that, that's how I felt. Or like when I said this, I'm afraid it came off wrong.
Yeah. I think for me, mental health, like, I mean, there's so many different avenues that we can go down on this route, but for some reason, what like really sticks with me is this like little meme that I saw, and it's like, oh, like you are so emotional, and someone replying back with, "Thank you, I worked really hard on that."
Yes.
Thank you. Yes, I am. And to me, that is an emotion, or like a mentally healthy person is someone who can fully like feel their feelings, acknowledge them, and process them, and in a way in which they're not analyzing them. Like, yes, analyze, but I was very guilty for a really long time of thinking that processing my emotions was analyzing them. And it's actually really just a loophole, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think you need to feel them.
Oh, absolutely.
And not just analyze. And I think you can do both where like for me, it is the like you need to feel them. And then you can be like, hey, where does this come from? But that comes after the feeling them.
Yes.
And I guess like for me in the beginning, it was like analyzing like, okay, where does this stem from? Where does this stem from?
Yeah.
Was my first step to them being able to feel them. But you cannot skip the step of feeling them because that's that like, you know, and at the end of the day, no one else can do your curls for you. If you want big biceps, no one can do your curls for you.
You're cutting corners.
Yeah.
And then guess what? Now you have more corners because you're cutting corners. How do you feel about the analyzation?
Well, I mean, it's kind of like what we have a friend. Well, I have a friend that he kind of shortcuts to like he has a feeling and then assumes that feeling is the only thing that really matters. So like he'll send a text message and I'll be busy and I won't reply, and he'll take it as me like ignoring him.
Right.
you know, and it's like, okay, but like you never stopped for a second and said, okay, I'm feeling ignored and I really wanted to have this conversation with this person.
Mm-hmm.
So why don't I reach out to this person and say, hey, look, like I'm feeling ignored and I thought we were in the middle of a conversation. But instead he goes straight to the, like, you're a bad person because you're ignoring me, you know?
Yeah.
So like that's the whole, like, I guess the part that I was talking about before where like, it's that like what you were saying, like that curiosity, it's like, okay, why am I feeling ignored? You know?
In that curiosity too of seeing things from that other person's perspective of like, I don't think that like he is trying to make me feel ignored, or maybe he is, or like, okay, I feel ignored. That's one step. And then giving space for the other person to be like, okay, but he might be busy. Or like, maybe I should bring it up of like, hey, just so you know, when you do this, I do feel ignored, and like see what he says, you know?
Yeah.
I feel like emotional intelligence and mental health are very intertwined. I don't think that like, I don't want people to get confused because I feel like we are talking about emotions a lot. No, but I think that they're super intertwined because.
Well, I think the easiest way to put that is that like you can't out exercise bad nutrition.
Oh, yeah.
So it's that case of like, you cannot gain like mental health without understanding emotional intelligence. Like, and I think to me, like, it's that sort of like plane of like, hey, you can't like, it's that whole, you cannot move on to calculus without knowing like subtraction and addition and multiplication. Like you have to have that base level understanding of emotional intelligence to be able to gain mental health. I don't think that you can like kind of hardwire mental health without those basic understandings of like, hey, like I am not the only person. Because if you think about it, it is that case of like a child is, and not to say this in like a mean way, but the way that the brain works is that like as a child, you are egocentric. You have to be. You have to be only taking care of yourself, only thinking about yourself, like as like a small infant. Yeah. So you only know your own needs, because the way that the brain develops is that you can only handle your own needs. So then as you grow up, you have to be able to see the world from other people's eyes, like through other people's perspectives. And like we talk about this a lot, is that it's that whole like lens of like, it's only my view that matters, versus having a kaleidoscope vision.
Absolutely. Of like, yeah, I feel like being able to see things from other people's perspectives is genuinely a skill. It's not a talent, because I feel like people take the word talent and they're like, oh, well, like you're born with it. It's a skill. You can develop that skill.
Yes.
So being able to emotionally, again, with your friend, like emotionally be like, okay, I'm feeling ignored, but I'm still going to give room for this person's perspective of knowing like maybe he doesn't mean to make me feel ignored, or maybe like he does. So maybe that's something that we should address. I feel like that's emotional intelligence and mentally healthy. We should address this like splinter in our relationship of like, hey, you make me feel ignored, and like I want to know where you're at with that.
Can I get your opinion on that? Do you think it's a skill that you've like learned?
Yeah, for sure. I think, but like the skill that you learn like is in that curiosity, is in that like I guess an example was we have meetings every morning, and I called out sick, and typically I'm the one who runs the meetings for our shop, but without me being there, it fell on someone else. But I didn't tell anybody, and that requirement wasn't like voiced to me. I was just like, I called out sick. I'm not showing up to work. Somebody else can handle it. And he was really upset that I didn't tell him that I called out sick, but didn't tell me why, you know? And he just took it as me like slighting him for not letting him know what I was doing. So I had to reach out and be like, hey, look, like, okay, I understand that you're, you know, feeling some kind of way about me not letting you know that I called in sick, but why do you feel like I have to call out sick? Like not being judgmental about your feelings around me not letting you know what's going on, but also like I need to know why, so that way going forward, like I can meet that need better. You know, and that's part of that you know, curiosity aspect where it kind of goes both ways, like to feel like you can be a good part of a community, you have to be able to meet other people's needs.
Yeah.
But also you need the community to communicate those needs back to you.
I love that you say the word communicate, because I was about to say, like, to me, a really good sign of being mentally like healthy is that communication of like, hey, I see your perspective, I see the hurt, but also here's where I'm at. How do we move on? Like, how do we not move on, but like, how do we go forward?
Yeah. How do we deepen this understanding? Like, that's one of my favorite parts about our relationship, and now our relationship is that, like, when I bring a hurt to you and I'm like, hey, I'm really like hurt in this moment, and like maybe you don't understand that, you then meet me with like, hey, where does that wound come from? Like, where can I better support you? So can I use you as an example?
Yeah, totally. Absolutely.
So like, where you have had, and just so you know, I'm just as guilty with like the need to people please. I think, to be fair, I've been better at masking it, and I'm much more aware of it lately. Of like picking up extra tasks because I'm people pleasing as opposed to like wanting to do it, which is not a good thing. But like, where you've wanted to people please means that like for us to be able to like grow as a like family, it means like we had this giant, like, I think it was like 4-hour like therapy session with our like friend group.
Yeah.
Where
with
we all
chosen
sat
family.
with our chosen family.
Yes.
Where we all sat in the like garage and we like confronted like our fears about our relationships, like our internalized fears about like losing each other. And and like at different points, like everyone cried and was truly vulnerable. And it felt like because of that, like now we're able to say anything that we want to fucking say. But like the catalyst for that was a lot of like, for me, I didn't feel comfortable talking about myself at the moment. So it was talking about you. And it was talking about the need that like I have with you, where it's like, I tend to bulldoze over a situation because I have a very dominant personality. And then because there is that natural age difference, so there's a slight power dynamic because like I was your mentor, you were my student. And being really aware of that meant that like I had to be like, hey, I'm going to bully you. And like for the rest of my life, I will regret the moments that I bullied you. And like, that's not on you. That's on me to carry.
Oh, for sure.
But I will regret those moments because I'm like, I definitely bullied you into things that I don't feel like you would have done otherwise. And though they make hilarious stories now about you putting your hand on an underage child.
Okay, well, hold on. We need to back the fuck up. First of all, it was not from my consent. I was told to do it.
No.
Second of all,
and also, to be clear, we did not know that. So if you've listened for a long time, you know the story of the fact that we went to a grad night
and
situation.
It was a magic show situation.
It was a magic show with a hypnotist.
Yeah. I got kicked off of the stage, by the way, because I wasn't buying into it.
Yeah, because you weren't buying into it.
Yeah.
So, and he had like placed her hand on
some
like,
kid.
Some kid who was 18 years old, but like we weren't sure. You just graduated. Tonight's your graduation. Are you 17, 18? Also, I don't consent to touching this child.
I'm weird about touching people, period.
So Callie's like, absolutely not.
Yeah.
And myself and another artist at the time, because we're like, you're an apprentice. You go up there.
You should go up with all the kids. And,
yes.
Yeah. It was just a funny
because you
thing.
were also like 20 at the time. So we're like, whatever, you're the same age as them. But I think about that, how like we inadvertently bullied you into things. And that meant that like it was a really big awakening for me to be like, I can because I have a dominant personality, I can be really pushy. The way I like to explain it now is that I can like bully for good. So I can bully you into like fitness, and because I'm really passionate about the things that I love.
Yeah.
So I can bully you into like health, fitness, mental health. But that means that like with someone like yourself who have come from that people pleaser side that was overt about their people pleasing, meant that I could very easily push you into situations that you would not have felt comfortable of. Are you good? You are very fidgety.
He's fine.
But I then have to be really aware of that. And that was one of the things we talked about in our friend group, because like one of like our best friends is like myself. And so we have big personalities, which means we can like push you into stuff. And then part of us loving you is being aware of that to then be like, hey, I need to give you lots of outs. Mm-hmm. So the way we talked about it for us was like, hey, it's that like, basically that compliment sandwich that they talk about in corporate America, but for us, it's the out sandwich. It's the like, hey, you totally don't have to absolutely do this. Like 100%, you do not have to do this. There's zero judgment that comes along with doing it. And then we'll suggest an idea, or I'll suggest like a topic that we can talk about. And then I will end it with, but like zero pressure. I seriously do not want you to like answer immediately. I want you to take time to think about it. And then I give extra praise when you like disagree or like push back. Mm-hmm. And that's something that like, it took me a long time to learn that skill, because in the beginning, if you like, even in the beginning, like one of my favorite things about her, and if you guys have been around for a long time, you know this, it's that I would be like, hey, I think this movie is hot garbage. And then she would be like, I think this movie is great. Mm-hmm. And she would stick with that like rigid like love of it. So my opinion did not matter. And it wasn't until some dog is snoring, it's Guinness. It didn't hit me until she was like, hey, it hurts my feelings that you like adamantly hate my shit, that I was like, oh, I didn't realize that what I do has like, look, first off, before I say this sentence, I'm aware about how fucking dumb this sentence is about to be. But if you've been in this place, you understand. Mm. I did not realize that the things I said affected other people. Mm-hmm. So I did not realize that there was weight being put behind, because like part of that like bully, and I say that in air quotes, mentality is that you think that nothing you say matters. Mm-hmm. Which means when someone says, hey, that hurts my feelings that you like adamantly talk shit about the things I love, mm-hmm. and not in the fun way that we tend to do now because we're aware of it, but in that way that like it hurts people's feelings, then you become aware of that. They're like, oh shit, I didn't mean for that to happen. Mm-hmm. And like the strength it takes for you to then stand up to that is one of those like beautiful moments where you're like, hey, that hurts my feelings. Mm-hmm. And for me, I was like, oh, fuck. Yeah. That hurts me greatly to know that like all this time I've been hurting your feelings. Yeah. And that's kind of what happened in our friend group this weekend, where it was like, hey, we've realized like that these boundaries have been crossed, and we didn't know that that feelings were being hurt.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So mentally healthy people, I think that like one of the big signals of being mentally healthy is how you respond to accountability. How do you guys feel about that? Because accountability, I feel like, is one of the, I shouldn't say hardest, but it is.
I do think it's the hardest.
Okay, thank you. I think it's deeply uncomfortable being held accountable and like realizing like, oh, I might have messed up here, or like, or not I might have, I messed up here, et cetera, et cetera.
So I think it's twofold. I think that like we have to give grace for the fact that like there is going to be a really shitty big response. Mm-hmm. Like I will never forget us preparing for Christmas and you telling me that when I say, well, it's just, you're like, you know what? When you say it's just, and I'm sure you did not say that in this sense, but this is what it felt like to me.
For sure.
It felt, I actually know for a fact you did not say it in this like tone.
Yeah. But it felt like
to me, it felt like gunshots when you're like, when you say it's just, you diminish everyone else around you. So it makes me feel like I'm less than. Mm-hmm. And it felt like that kind of attack. And I just had to like be silent and sit with that, because I was like, I've been trying to say that something is just, because in my family, any sense of like being better than or sticking out meant that like, you were like on the chopping block to be like harmed. Like if you were better anyone for anything, you were going to be harmed. Mm-hmm. But it also meant that like, and I think this still exists in my world. Like I haven't healed this. Mm-hmm. Are you awkwardly drinking? Because you're
trying to not make noise. But.
You're fine.
No, you're
but he's like drinking very cautiously. But it's also the fact that like I still have a really large wound around like if I'm better at something than someone, it makes somebody else feel bad. That's a huge wound of mine.
And you talk about it quite a bit. Like in competitions, Lou does not want to come out first.
No. I always
no, because it makes someone uncomfortable.
Like we were doing the American Open. I was coaching. and she was lifting, and she was sharing a platform with an athlete who was way under her numbers. And they were just kind of like sharing platforms. So like we put in her opening numbers or whatever, and the other athlete that was sharing the platform was like, you know, going out first on every single lift.
Yeah.
And I think it was on the snatch. She like bombed.
She did. It was awful.
And
what happens?
So like
yeah, but her coaches were so mean.
Oh,
they were like
Callie and I are both crying, by the way, because we know how bad it is.
They were treating her like it was like this was the Olympics.
Yeah,
and she had to hit this opening number,
or you're gonna die.
Yeah, and it's like, dude, this is like a regional competition at best, you know, and it's like just hit a number just to go out there, you know, and get something on the board.
Yes.
And like this was like D group, you know, so nobody's winning a medal in this group. And
no, you're literally there to hit a number.
You're just there because the best part about this is that like they're like live streaming this to the internet and your family can watch.
Yeah.
And like you're sharing the same platform as people that are competing to go to the Olympics. Like, bitch, you are not going to the Olympics. But like the people that have stood on this platform are competing for the Olympics.
For sure.
They're fucking primo people.
And then like for her to go out there and just like absolutely bomb, like like even that small amount of like, I don't know, connection that you had just from sharing a platform.
Wanted it so bad.
And then to feel her disappointment, and then like to go out there and then have to beat her.
Yeah.
Like,
that's why you always want to be vice president.
Oh my God.
I've always, so for anyone that was ever in Model UN with me or like any of that, like it's vice president, because like I've never had a desire to be first place.
Yeah.
I've always been so happy being second. First off, silver is prettier than gold. We'll just state that.
Yeah.
But then like that's that curiosity part of mental like awareness and mental health where I'm like, is it? Or is it that like you've convinced yourself it's prettier because that's a healthier like place for you to be?
Yeah.
Or I guess not healthier, a safer place to be because you don't want to be that number one, because that puts you in line for like.
And to be clear, I do not share the same sentiment. I think that if you win first place, fair is fair. Like it is,
but it's just not worth it for me. The disappointment on other athletes' faces have never been worth it.
Wow, you're so empathetic.
Never.
I mean, she missed her 3. I think she even went up.
Yeah.
She went up in weight to try to give her some extra time to recoup in between attempts on the snatch, and then came back after her 3rd attempt after she bombed and was just crying, and then like she was crying too.
Yeah,
like,
and I was crying. And like the way that he was able to pull me out of that was he was like, "Hey, you're not competing against her. I, as your coach, because my coach had just dropped out the day before.
Yep. Which is also a shitty thing to do.
But also, to be fair, like he took me as far as he could take me. Yeah. So, but like you were like, hey, we're not competing against her. Fuck those coaches. And it was this like amazing, like, I mean, I guess if we're talking about mental health, this like mental health moment for you to be able to pivot to be like, hey, we're not competing against her. She didn't lose. Fuck her coaches for giving her these numbers that they should have known what she can hit and what she can't hit. Yeah. Because like if you've done Olympic weightlifting, you know that ideally your first 2 lifts, like you want to come out. I just burped. You want to come out strong on your first lift. You want your first lift to be a guaranteed lift. You want your second lift to be a strong lift for you. And you're just like wishing for the stars on your 3rd.
Yeah.
And you were really good about that, about being like, we're not competing against her.
Like hey, we just cut weight to make weight for this weight class. Like, let's get something that's like, you know, safe that we can get on the books, and then we'll go from there, see how that feels, you know, warm up to that weight. But she was like, I don't know if she was trying to PR on that first lift, but like.
But the way you would explain it to me was that like we weren't competing against her. We were competing against her coaches who had done her wrong. And that was like a beautiful like kind of pivot for me was to be like, hey, I'm not beating her. I'm basically saying fuck you to her coaches for like putting her out there on a lift that they like didn't think, like they weren't sure she could make.
Yeah, and let's call it how it is. It's a kaleidoscope moment. Like you did a really good like perspective shift. You said, I know that you're in your head about like you're competing against her, but guess what? Actually, let's flip lenses.
Yeah.
We're not actually competing it. That was a kaleidoscope
Whereas,
moment.
for me, I was like, I don't want to play anymore because like this person, and she was, because there were those athletes that were taking this, like, once again, D group. We're not going to the Olympics. We're not winning a medal. Like, we are the like top of the amateurs.
Yeah.
Of Olympic weightlifting, and like there were people there that took it so seriously where I was like, well, I would like to beat you because you're taking this too seriously.
Yeah, and you're kind of being a dick.
Yeah, and they were mean. And
Don't
then
be
like
a dick
here
about
she
it.
is.
And then like so we opened conservatively on the snatch, and then
I was the first person out, like,
Wow.
to walk out on the snatch. And then I got really scared because I was the last person.
And she was like, we messed something up. The numbers are wrong. Like,
Yeah, I had to follow myself over and over again on the clean and jerk. And I was like, oh no, we messed something up. Like, I'm the last person. I'm lifting the heaviest amount on the clean and jerk. And he's like, look, you can get this clean and jerk on a bad day.
Yeah, you're good.
Like, you're okay. And like, that was the thing, was that like he genuinely like had, and I think that like when I look back at that, and this was like, what, 7 or 8 years ago?
something like that. Yeah.
I look back on that and I can also see like in that where like maybe like you didn't have like the self like kaleidoscope like for yourself to like, you know, be able to look internally, but you were able in that moment to know what I needed to like flip for me.
Yeah, and it's like, I guess, I don't know if this is a good analogy, but like going from that, being able to support you on game day, and then being able to extend that to every day, you know?
Yeah.
Where like I can show up and meet those same needs that you needed in that competition, but just every day, you know?
But then how do you feel? Because I feel like you've been able to show up for me more than you've been able to show up for you.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's a whole another thing. That's a whole like, you know, patriarchal thing, like where like the emphasis isn't put on taking care of myself, it's taking care of other people, you know.
As a man's role, you are meant to be like gosh, I heard this quote recently and it was like the best man is a useful one,
which I think is what you lived by.
I saw something on Instagram that was talking about that, and that's like the whole like, when you boil it down, that's the whole basis of like the patriarchy, right? It's like back in the day, a man's like worth was based off of how much money he could make and how he could support his wife, and a wife's worth was how clean the house was and how she took care of the kids, you know. And that like carried over to like where we don't have to focus on ourselves, we don't have to like grow ourselves emotionally, like. And now like I think it was Will Hitchens, that guy.
Shout out to Will Hitchens. He's amazing. Yeah. If you don't follow him on social media, you should.
But it was like, that was our worth, was like whether or not like we were useful. And now like that women are starting to be able to pay their own bills and have their own bank accounts. Like they don't need that from us anymore. And us as men are like, well, then what am I doing? Like, how do I find a woman that wants to be with me?
Right.
If all I have to offer is my job, you know, my financial security.
And we don't need that anymore.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, you don't need that anymore. And
but, like,
this is all I have.
Been taught that, like, wait a second, like in a way, it's dehumanizing. The whole like your worth is based off of your job and how much financial income that you can bring. That's in my brain dehumanizing.
Well, yeah, it's the same thing.
It gets rid
that,
of your individualism.
Yeah, when we got married, got married in 2011, I think. Neither one of us are good with the dates. And we fully subscribed to the patriarchal belief of the like patriarchy.
Yeah.
That like I would, so to give a little context, I lived in South Carolina at the time and had my own business. I had a tattoo shop up there, and he lived in Jacksonville, and I would come down and very happily, but also not happily. I think there's always that undertow of like, this doesn't feel correct. That like I would come down, and then we didn't have a washer and dryer in our unit. Like we had the hookups, but we definitely could not afford a washer and dryer. And so I would like tote all the like laundry. Like he wouldn't do laundry all week. And then I would come down on the weekends, and while he was playing video games, I would then like go and take it. And he would be like, oh, I feel bad that you're playing, like I'm playing video games and you're going and sitting in the apartment's like laundromat doing my laundry. And I was like, no, I'm so happy to do it. And part of me was happy to do it because, let me be clear, to this day, I still do enjoy doing laundry. As a like fully realized human being, it is still a thing. If you've listened for long enough, you've heard me talk about like the warmth and the sensory parts of like that really like resonates with my like autistic side. But he, even at that point, would have like guilt around it, which means that like, though we absolutely subscribe to those like characters that we were supposed to play in this like insane fucking play of the patriarchy, both of us at the same time are like, I don't know if I genuinely want to do this. And we didn't have the language around it. And then just to go back really fast, I don't think it was Will Hitchens. However, we will put his social media in the show notes. I do think it was the speech professor.
It could be.
Yeah, because when you said that and you were like reciting it, I think it was his. We'll also include that, or more accurately, I say we, it's going to be him. He does all that. But it is that case of like, as we start dismantling like where these thoughts like come from, where I really thought that like my entire identity centered around having a perfectly clean home and having this like if people walk in and my house isn't clean, I'm going to be judged. And it was like the hardest thing ever. And now I've realized that I'm like, no, for me, I have to have a clean home. Not because I'm judging people that don't have a clean home, but because like for my sensory issues, I need to have a clean home. And I like those parts of it, but it isn't because of that patriarchal belief that like I'm going to be judged. It's because like, we have 3 dogs that shed a lot, and dog fur like is something that becomes this like, we always put it, like a splinter for me. So I think that's also that case of like, we just had a light flash.
It's running out of battery.
That as the sensory issues end up coming in, we get to then like determine like what your actual needs are, as opposed to then being like, hey, these are the beliefs that we have. And I think that's probably for me, that part of like that curiosity is understanding the parts of it that's like, hey, is this because I've been programmed to believe this? Or is this because like, for me personally, these things matter?
Yeah. And I love that the patriarchy is something that came up so organically. So thank you, Caboose. Because I think that plays a huge role in people's mental health as far as relationships go.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my goodness gracious.
I feel like, so it's kind of like a buzzword, right? Like,
yeah,
people hear patriarchy and they're just like, bleh.
And they shut down and they're like, what the fuck ever?
Yeah, but it's like, I don't know, it's kind of like a catch-all for there's no other way to describe like what is happening to people in society where, it's kind of like, I think it was Albert Einstein had this quote that was like, you can't judge a fish by his ability to climb a tree, So like men and women, growing up, we were taught this thing and indoctrinated into the system where our worth and what we were taught was what we were supposed to be was one thing. And then realizing that like, it's not so much that like, you have to be just a really good, like hard worker and then everything else will fall in place. Like, no, you have to be able to interact with other people too.
You have to have that emotional intelligence and like the neuroplasticity for it. If you want to get really like sciencey about it, like the patriarchy is the reason why we all have these like neural pathways of like, I don't feel good enough as a man because of the patriarchals.
Yeah, I'm not big enough.
Settings.
I don't earn enough money. It's that whole, well, I mean, but I mean, I think that's a perfect case that like
absolutely.
in your sense, like men look at you and they're like, oh, he's physically large.
Yeah.
Which means you get more of these like patriarchal points. But then like in my sense, like I get knocked down a notch because I shaved half my head.
And you own your own business.
I own my own business.
Yes.
I'm outspoken. I am not gentle. I don't like to cook.
Yeah.
And like no matter how much I'm like, hey, I really want to be a good cook because that would make me like, you know, a better woman. I say in air quotes.
Yeah, points.
Yeah, like I want that point, but also like I don't, and I kind of think of it now in the sense of like we talked about on the way back from San Jose that like I'm curious to take like cooking lessons, like actual formal, because I work really well with my like neurodivergence. Like I work really well in a classroom setting. I understand classroom settings aren't for everyone. I love them because then I walk in and I say, I know what I'm getting into. I like the structure around them, but I want to take cooking lessons to decide like, do I like cooking because I like cooking or do I not? Like, is it because I'm not good at it that I don't like it? Or is it because like, I just genuinely don't fucking like it? Because like I watch people cook and it feels like magic.
Yeah.
But it feels the same way like watching him do engineering stuff. But if I'm being completely honest, I would rather learn how to like do a circuit board. Like that's more interesting to me than learning what the fuck spices do.
Or how they will taste with each other.
But being somebody who is in a female presenting body and being in to the rest of the world what looks like a heteronormative relationship of being like, no, I don't cook and I don't like to cook. It then is that thing of like, not only am I carrying the judgment for me, but I'm also like carrying the judgment for him. Like, oh, well then he's judged in the fact that like anyone in that like that follows the patriarchy is like, your wife doesn't cook.
Yep.
You should get her in line. She needs to be barefoot in the kitchen.
Well, yeah.
And pregnant.
And I think the peak of mental health is again like that neuroplasticity and that like making different neural pathways. You say what you're gonna say. I need to pee. I'll be right back.
So I guess like that kind of brings up a good point. Like my therapist brought this up where it was like, whenever you're thinking about doing something, if the word attached to it is like, I should do this, it's typically somebody else telling you to do something and not something that you want to do. So like if it's like cooking, you know, if you're saying, well, I should be a better cook, well, then that's somebody else telling you to be a better cook. And it's not like I want to be a better cook. Then that's you like, you know, pushing yourself to be a better cook.
Yeah.
You know.
But I know for myself personally, like I agree with that. That's one of my favorite like sayings is the like I should, and I know that shoulds are other people. But for me it's that like if I'm not good at something, like it doesn't come easily for me, then I will have a natural like aversity to it. So I in my brain, like when we were watching Donna cook last night, and like don't get me wrong, her kitchen is amazing. It looked like a showcase like kitchen. And so I was watching her with like the lights on there and it felt like watching a movie. And I was just like, dude, I want to take cooking lessons. Now, do I want to take them by myself? Absolutely not. That seems too scary. I'm like for fear of judgment of like not being good enough. Because once again, I am that kid. I think you were in gifted programs like, but I was in gifted programs up until I went into high school. And then the high school that I went to did not have gifted programs. I don't know if yours did, like how long you were in gifted programs.
I was in gifted until middle school, and then it stopped being easy, so I stopped going.
Yeah, and for me, I was in gifted all through like middle school. We did the like stupid like AP classes. I say that in fucking quotations because it didn't make a difference when I got to high school. But that's what they said. So for me, like performing well in a class is also something that I should like, not should, but that I will, and I look forward to like unpacking. But it's that like I want to like take classes like with people that I feel safe around. So if I fuck up, I have someone to laugh at, or laugh with. So that way, if I'm like, dude, I suck at cutting this like onion, then it has this like protective barrier of like community, as opposed to like if I took a cooking class by myself, then I would be like, oh no, I don't feel as safe in this because I would fear judgment of like, hey, you're not a good cook. Therefore, you are not a good quote unquote woman in this patriarchal system. But also like cooking is seen as this like life skill. And I kind of like, now that I say it out loud, realize that I should treat cooking the same way that I treat swimming. Like when you Callista, say that you're not a good swimmer, and I'm like, bitch, you haven't drowned yet.
You can swim. It's like my mom. My mom wasn't a good cook, but she could cook.
There you go.
You know, and I guess that's the difference. Is like you want to learn how to cook well, not like, because you can make a meal. You've done Christmas dinner. You've done Thanksgiving.
Yeah,
you know.
But it's not in like the way that you guys can. That like spices. I just don't understand.
You've done an English Christmas.
I'm not gonna lie, you guys. Every time we pull out spices, I'm always like, oh, I forget that's a thing.
Yeah,
Wait,
absolutely.
no,
Seasonings?
Salt and pepper. You got that down.
Yeah, that's the only two spices.
Very English. Very English.
In my brain, I'm like, there are so many different perspectives, but in cooking, I'm like, salt and pepper. That's all. Black and white. That's all you need.
Yeah. No, I think. Well, at the end of, again, talking about patriarchal like needs and wants and like the systems that are put in place and how it's like affected our mental health. What? All we are all we are critters trying to love each other. And I think that's the biggest thing is like
hairless critters trying to love each other. And that's one of the biggest things about being like mentally healthy is realizing that like, what do I need as an individual?
Yeah.
And how do I affect other people as well?
Oh, gross. I hate that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's a good way to put it. Like, it's the whole, like, I don't know, because it takes two sides. Like, when you affect somebody else and you may not realize that you affect somebody else, having that other person be able to say, hey, this is how you affected me.
Yeah. And then also being able to gauge like whether or not this relationship will work. Because here's the thing. If someone were to approach me and be like, hey, you being so busy all the time affects me emotionally, unfortunately, that just means we're not compatible. Whoa, what is happening?
You running away?
No,
Someone's
I love
running
this.
away.
I got really hot, and I realized my option was to take off my shirt.
Just take your shirt off on the podcast. That's fine. You've done multiple episodes with just being in a sports bra, but
okay.
That's the thing is like those are your options, right?
This is
like,
can I just interject really fast?
Absolutely.
Also, this is what perimenopause looks like. It is currently 73 degrees in here, and I feel like it is like, I don't know. I called Callie a bitch yesterday for being like temperature, whatever. Temperature sensitive, and I am currently in a massive hot flash.
Yeah.
And it is so hot in here that when I looked at the thermostat and said it is 73, I'm like, I am dying.
And I'm cold.
So if you, I'm so sorry, I just cranked it down even further.
Okay.
So if you also are going through menopause, respect. It is terrible. It is hot randomly, and it is hard to be in your body.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
continue what you're saying, though. I love that.
No,
I
yeah.
just need to fix this.
Again, like it's just a lot of it is gauging what you need, and how you affect other people, and the patriarchy does have a huge place to play in it, unfortunately.
But I have to say, though, I do think that like just to like add on really fast. I know we've like done a long episode, but whatever. You guys are here for it. Yep. If you're still listening, congratulations.
Thanks for listening.
But like, how has that changed for you? Because I feel like that's been like a huge growth for you.
How's what changed?
Like the like effect on other people. Because like when we had our big like group therapy session the other day, I say therapy in quotations. We weren't actually in therapy. We're in our own version of therapy. Mm-hmm. And like it meant for me, like you coming in the garage and like being a part of that was huge. Like you could have been like, no, thank you. And like walked upstairs. And instead you were like, hey, I'm going to be a part of this, and chose to be a part of it.
Yeah. So I think it's like, it's partially like being able to like what you were saying, like, realize that you affect other people, and then also being able to hear other people tell you how you affected them and being able to address that, you know. But also, like, for me, being in the job that I work in and being around the people that I work around, you know, a majority of the people that I'm exposed to on a daily basis don't have those skill sets, don't have that, like, capability, you know. So and it's not fair for me, I feel, to expect those things out of them. But also, like, there's a little bit of, like, I don't know, mourning or like sadness around the fact that, like, the relationships that I have with like Callie and Rachel and Cole are, like, way different than anything that I would be able to have with, you know, the stereotypical person that I like interact with. And it's like, it's not fair for me to expect that of them, because that's not where they are in their journey, and they may never be there, you know.
Yeah.
But, like, to hold them to the standard, I think, is like not fair to them, but also like for me, I've been kind of like, okay, like, I'm not gonna, like, expect you to tell me, like, hey, when you did this, it made me feel like that. But also, like, I'm gonna kind of push you on that way. Like, hey, look, like, in order for me to be in this relationship, like, I'm not gonna accept that, you know, you're just gonna say, oh, well, now you're ignoring me, or whatever he said. You know, I'm gonna say, okay,
Noted.
Yeah, noted.
Yeah.
Which is the male version of, like, my feelings are hurt, but I don't know how to say that.
Like, oh, this is how you are. Noted. You know?
Yeah.
But, like, I'm going to be like, hey, look, like, I'm not going to take that as, like, you know, like, we're going to dive into this, whether you like it or not, because that's the only way this relationship's going to go forward.
For sure.
But, like, it's kind of exhausting, too, you know? Like, to...
It is,
to be like, hey, look, like, I don't want to be treated like this anymore, so I'm going to make you tell me how I affected you. It fucking sucks.
Yeah.
You know?
Can I just add to that? A, I'm proud of you. B, welcome to being an emotionally aware human being.
Yeah. Which is, like...
Because that's what it is, where it's like, hey, I need to, like... while feeling these emotions, also educate the people around me on emotion.
Yeah, you're holding your weight and the other person's at the same time.
Yeah.
Yes. That's the unsexy part about having that kaleidoscope vision that people don't talk about, seeing things from different perspectives, is the fact that, like, not only are you carrying your own feelings around the situation, but you're holding the same weight in order to gain that perspective of that other person's feelings.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is exhausting, but it is worth it.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Do you, okay, I guess that would be the last question, because we are coming, like, just shy of an hour. Is, do you think it's worth it? Because when we started this journey of, like, therapy and, like, introspectiveness, like, one of our biggest fears was, like, what if we go to therapy and we are like, holy fuck.
Turns out we're not, like...
Yeah, it turns out we don't like each other.
It's hard to say. So, like, not I was thinking more
He's hard launching divorce on the podcast.
It's just hard launching on the divorce. Hard to say. Actually, I think I don't love you as much. Your menopausal self is not it for me.
No, I was thinking, like, in general terms. Like, okay, so, like, I started this whole mental health journey, like, long time ago. You know, when was that? 2007, whatever.
Yeah.
I wouldn't call it a suicide attempt, but, like, I was thinking real hard about killing myself, and so I started going to therapy, and got diagnosed with, like, with depression, and started taking antidepressants and stuff like that. But, like, it didn't really, like, make a shift, because I don't think I really wanted it at that time, you know.
Yeah.
I just wanted to not feel how I was feeling, you know? And I think that, like, through this, like, at that point, I would say that wasn't worth it. You know, I didn't really learn anything from it. And then recently, like, you know, with the depression coming back, and then, like, going, fuck, how many different therapists have I seen? You know, I tried to do that BetterHelp thing, and, like, that didn't work for me. So then I tried to do telemedicine, and then that didn't work for me. By the way, BetterHelp is garbage.
This is not an ad for BetterHelp.
Fucking,
certified thumbs down for BetterHelp.
I had an appointment and my therapist just fucking basically left me on red for 15 minutes. You know, the last 15 minutes of my session, he just disappeared and didn't reply to any of my.
He might have got on the toilet.
I got ghosted by my
violent
therapist.
shits happening during your session that you paid for, by the way.
Yeah, hourly rate for his violent shits. But so I don't know. Maybe you've had better like experiences with BetterHelp, but I think
hope you have.
I've always thought it was.
But also, can I just add in really fast? You need to go and see a person in person.
Oh yeah.
I feel like, so for me, that's what it was. Like,
yeah.
I started seeing a therapist in person, and kind of like, I don't know, we towards the end there, we started to not really like be able to see eye to eye, like around like our relationship. She was a very like heteronormative, like centric, like therapist. So like men act this way and women act this way. Mm-hmm. And it started to kind of like drive us apart. And then I started seeing another therapist, started doing the EMDR. And for that, like, I feel like I've learned a lot more. So I feel like that has been worth it. And so like, I don't know, it depends. I think you need to find what works for you in order for it to be worth it. Sorry, that was a really long.
No, that was amazing. It was so informative. I think that's that case of like, just to like sum up like what you said, but also I did not want to take the short route on that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because that was like so incredibly informative. I think that it's once again that case of like, whatever like health looks like for you, whether it's like, you know, for me it's CrossFit, but also like it's been like the YouTube videos like Grow with Joe, and it looks like doing like, you know, working out in the way of like playing Connect, or like for you it's been running. I haven't yet quite asked you, which I'll ask you in a second about that, but it is the case of like whatever works for you. So if you're like, hey, I think that like just meeting my like therapist on like, you know, telehealth is great, then it's whatever works for you works for you. I do think that like you kind of reach that like those moments like with my Olympic weightlifting coach, like he took me to the American Open, but then when I didn't listen to him because I knew in that moment what I needed most, and you knew what I needed most, and we PR'd my lift by like 20 pounds.
Damn, dude.
Like, was it 2 days before?
Yeah, 2 days before. And I told him, and because he was very like rigid in his structure, which FYI, we're still friends, so we're cool about it. But he was very rigid in that structure and was like, hey, and he didn't mean to leave me high and dry, but he was like, I can't take you any further. And like, as somebody who wants to be a therapist, like I understand that I can only take people as far as they can go.
Yeah.
And I personally never want to do telehealth, just because for me that doesn't feel like the most like genuine, because 70% of our communication is nonverbal. So I don't want to do that, like if I can't be present with someone. But I think that like you have to pick your poison. If it's, you know, to go back to that like physical health, if it's running, or I don't know that she knows she's a runner yet. I
don't think I am. But
I was going to ask you that, because we've talked about that in our friend group, that like you wake up and go for a run.
Well, yeah, just get everything going. You know what I mean? Okay.
Wouldn't you define that as a runner?
I would call that being a runner. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yes. And so I think that's the thing, is that whatever works for you. And I think that's the same thing. Like both her and I are interested in EMDR because like we've seen like for you, the most amount of benefits, but then like one or both of us could do EMDR and be like, wow, I didn't really get benefit from that. And so I think that like it's one of those cases of like you have to look at like mental health just like physical health. And like when it comes to nutrition, like yes, you need to hit all your vitamins, minerals, macros, and micronutrients, but also whatever the fuck gets it in, if it's adding veggies to your mac and cheese or it's eating a salad, there's no right or wrong way to do it.
Period.
If it's EMDR, amazing. If it's like, for me, a lot of like my mental growth happens through verbal processing and a lot of like self-help books and a a lot of podcasts and a lot of like very like what other people would consider to be dry intellectual material when I'm like, oh no, I love reading studies. And then the average person is out there, not the average, like a bad, but like most people are out there like, who the fuck is reading studies? Mm-hmm. But like one of my favorite things is listening to these podcasts. And then when they actually post the studies is being like, I want to read the study about this. Like, this is fascinating. Mm-hmm. So it's finding what works for you and then going on that journey so long as that journey works, and then being okay with taking like whatever detour works. Yeah. You look like you had something to say, runner.
Oh God, that's crazy. No, I think in my head, what I was thinking is the fact that like, you know, again, find what works for you, assess, go to therapy. That is always like such a big part about being mentally healthy that we haven't like talked about. But well, I mean, we have obviously, but we've covered so many bases in this podcast. So I understand if it is a lot, but I would like to challenge our viewers and our listeners to ask yourself, what does mentally healthy look like for you?
Yes.
What would you like to see out of your journey?
Mm-hmm.
How would you like to get there?
And I think that's like a good way to put it, like kind of to bring it back to where we were, like what does a mentally healthy person looks like? It's like somebody who's always looking for that. Like, like you took Olympic weightlifting as far as you could take it, but then you didn't give up on the fitness journey. You found something else to put your effort into.
Strong man.
Yeah. You know, and so like, I think mental health is like fun. That. Like, like what I was saying, like I started out with like one therapist and it's like, okay, I like these aspects, but I didn't like these aspects. Mm-hmm. So how can I stay on this journey, but not stay where I am, you know? Mm-hmm. And so, okay, well, I need to see somebody in person, you know? So like, I think that's what it is. It's like, staying on the journey and finding what works.
And acknowledging that like as humans, we are malleable, flexible beings. We're allowed to not like the things that we hate or the things that like we liked before. We're allowed to hate the things that we used to love.
Yes.
We're allowed to love the
we
things
talked
that
about that
hate.
On the drive home.
For sure.
Like, like I'm sure if you guys dig back enough, you will find where I was like, A24 is hot garbage. And then I saw where somebody had posted like A24 is satirical humor. Mm-hmm. And I was like, and I didn't know that humor or what is it? Like comedic horror was a thing.
Bodies.
So good.
Dude, it's one of my favorites. And I'm not talking like the comedic horror in the case of like Scary Movie, in the case of Scream, in the case of Bodies. But I'm talking like that next, like dry humor of then that being like part of the like horror experience. And then when I get to like see it through that lens, I'm like, oh, I had the wrong lens on. Mm-hmm. But then like when I look at like, you know, Midsommar, like in that lens, and like I still stand by the fact that I fucking loved, and I do not remember the title of that movie that the rest of you hated, where it was just back vulvas giving birth.
Men.
And I loved it.
Backginas.
Yeah, backginas. And I think that that's the thing is like, to me, that was one of those like great movies where I was like, oh no, I love this A24 movie. But like now when I see A24, I'm not like, fuck, I'm going to hate this.
Yeah.
I'm like, wait, there's a solid chance I'll like this, or there's a solid chance I'll hate it. But also props to them for always giving me a polarizing, like I either love it or I think it's like Saint Maud. Oh my God. It was so boring.
The last hour I said, girl, we don't need this. Girl, what is happening? We got the point. And that was the first time I've done that during. But we knew like movie lovers that were like, that's amazing. You know, it's like you with Creep. Like when I look at it through the comedic lens, I'm like, this is so cringe. And we learned that you love cringe. So I think it is that like constant idea of curiosity. Yeah. Is like, to me, that is that like one trait of like actual mental health is like being curious.
Like your perception of the world is not like the right way. Yeah. It is not the only way. It is not the correct way.
You're allowed to put on different lenses.
Yes.
You're allowed to try on different goggles, different glasses, like, and we encourage that It is one of the most beautiful things about being human.
So on that note, I would say, what's your win for the week?
What's your win for the week?
Words are hard.
What's the win for the week?
What is your win for the week?
I'll start.
Okay.
I think my win for the week is is trading shirts. I have a shirt saying, "Let's get this bread."
Shirt.
And it has a bunch of ducks on it eating bread. No, my win for the week is probably acknowledging the growth that I have had, and also acknowledging, like, for once in my life, like, being in a relationship, acknowledging that I am a human being, this is what I need, and also acknowledging the flexibility of what I need. I may or may not want to see someone. I may or may not want to hang out. I may or may not want to blah, 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 blah. This is just how it is. So that's my win for the week, is fully embracing my own flexibility and my own moon shifts and my own changes.
Can I just add, that sounded like you farted, but I know it's a chair. The great part about, like, seeing you with your flexibility is that it allows me to have flexibility.
Good.
And it also allows me to see flexibility in other people.
Yeah.
Because, like, that is a trait, like, if you are on the neurodivergent spectrum, if you are on the, like, autistic range, flexibility can be hard.
Oh, for sure.
And so to see someone that I love, like, you know, arguably, like, more than I love myself is, like, so refreshing to be like, wait, if you're allowed flexibility, maybe I'm allowed flexibility. Maybe he's allowed flexibility.
Absolutely.
And to see you, like, holding that, like, so powerfully, like, allows, like, others to also feel that.
I'm allowed to change my mind at the drop of a hat. And guess what? So are you. Period.
Mm-hmm. Okay, what was your win for the week? Do you want to come back anytime?
No, I don't know. I'd probably say the, like, actually pursuing this whole, like, mushroom thing, like growing mushrooms.
It's amazing.
Mine was super superficial, but
no,
I don't think that's okay. Let's once again.
We actually get really excited for you. For this journey.
It's not superficial at all, because the same way that, like, with her embracing that flexibility, like, you embracing hobbies allows me to embrace hobbies and allows her to embrace hobbies. And also, we get to benefit. We get to eat them. We get to enjoy them.
I get so freaking excited about enoki mushrooms. And also, they're like your little children. So, like, that's something that we both kept asking you. Like, aren't you so proud? Because, like, that's so cool.
I think that's probably, like, bigger picture, like, giving myself permission to actually do these things. Like, to prioritize myself when it comes to, like, hobbies and not feel guilty for doing them, you know?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
which I think is that whole breaking down the barrier of feeling useful.
Yeah.
Yes.
Is that it breaks down, like, does you growing mushrooms in the closet make you useful? Not particularly. We could just go to the store and buy them.
Yeah.
But it's way more fun.
It is so much better because, like, for me, like, I explained to you, like, every hobby that you've ever had, from astrophotography to woodworking, has this, like, amazing, like, building block, like, thing on it where you're like, hey, I'm interested in woodworking. And then I can be like, I have this ridiculous engineering idea of I need a rolling desk that is on what is the base of it? A fucking 2x4?
2x3, yeah.
2x3. And I need it to, like, balance, but I also need to be able to put heavy weights on it.
Yeah.
And I need it to move easily. And because you had all of these other hobbies in the past, it then allowed it to, like, happen. And we all were there for that moment where we had to flip the fucking desk and be like, fingers crossed this works. But that is a literal anchor of our business. And so, like, for me, every single time you go on a different venture, because, like, had you not gone on the venture of building, like, habitats for our reptiles, and that venture was dope, to be clear. Had you not gone on that, then, like, this mushroom journey would not be what it is now, where, like, we have a literal ecosystem in a closet.
Yeah, and not to make you, like, wildly uncomfortable, but I think for me it is such a great display of healthy masculinity and healthy, like, individualism in you being a man outside of the fucking patriarchy, which tells you that you have to be useful at all times.
Yes.
No, instead I get to see you as a fucking person. which is what you are and what you should be, a fucking person. So period.
Which then, it's that case of like, it then gives that permission for everyone else in your life that gets to see you being an individual. They then get to be individuals.
Yeah.
So I think like, it is that like, as you're just like haphazardly like, whatever, I'm just growing mushrooms in the closet. I'm like, but the ripple effects, the ripple effects of that are massive.
Yeah.
And like, as the person who's chosen to do life with you, like, I then am excited for the next step of that, because there's always been that part of like creating ecosystem. So I can see that like through line, but that's also like where I as an individual thrive, is that looking at that through line of all these things. So like, I get really excited of like, where will this go? Like,
period.
Yeah.
Grow your shrooms. You're an inspiration.
Okay, so I guess that leaves me for what my win for the week is. And my win for the week is, I guess, being honest and open about the fact that I am 37 and currently experiencing menopause with hot flashes, which shifts me from being the cold friend to being the mostly cold but randomly hot friend.
I've been dethroned.
And addressing the fact that like, the window of like, hey, if I thought like, yo, you want to have kids even though you don't want to, that's like being removed from me.
Yeah, it is. Oh.
Yeah. Your fucking face.
It just hit me.
Oh.
But also, I'm cold. Anyways, thank you guys so much for listening. We appreciate the crap out of you.
On that note, we're going to walk our dogs in the hot, warm sun.
Yep.
And I have the best shirt here, by the way.
Love you guys mucho.
Love you.
Thank you.
Thank you for another long episode. We love you guys so much. And we will see you back next week, where we will talk about something serious, not serious. We don't fucking know. It's our podcast. We do whatever we want. But that being said, like, subscribe, all the shit we're supposed to say, because we're on Spotify,
And
YouTube, and all the platforms. Yeah, that stuff. Love you.
Bye.
Bye. Oh, that's good.